this one? Yes, you got that paper, okay. G, look, we did not get it signed, Sean. And amazing. I need you paperwork so bad.
About that. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Right.
Man, he's, whew.
Is it hot in here?
Is it hot in here? Oh, okay. Hold on a second. I feel like we gotta. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Josiah. All right. I did write that down. Fantastic. All right, Josiah, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to rock and roll, because today we're going to be diving into the exhilarating world of heavy metal. Anvils. So what is an anvil? Well, we're all pretty familiar with what an anvil is, whether you're using it in Minecraft to get that efficiency 5 pickaxe, or seeing it dropped on Wile E. Coyote's head in a cartoon. But most of us are familiar with anvils but don't know much about them. And that's for pretty good reason, because anvils are incredibly uninteresting and boring. However, I believe that if you look deep into anything, you can find something of value. So that's exactly what I've done with this presentation. We're going to be going over what an anvil is, different types of anvils, the history of anvils, and more importantly, how they affect our lives today. So what is this hunk of metal? What's going on?
Why does it always happen to you?
I don't know. So an anvil is a tool used in blacksmithing, specifically forging metal. So if you don't know what that is, a blacksmith will take a piece of metal they want to make into a pot or a horseshoe or something, and heat it up so it's red hot and it will become malleable, and they'll place it on the anvil and strike it with a hammer, as you see in that picture. And this will allow you to bend it into whatever shape you need it to be. They're basically a massive metal tool. And what's interesting about the anvil is it's shaped the way it is to maximize inertia. So when you hit the piece of metal, it transfers the most energy onto that piece of metal. There's different parts of the anvil which are having different uses. And it's really important when you use an anvil, you want to put it on a hard surface, because you don't want it to wiggle around while you're working on it. That's bad. It could fall off and kill someone. No, you got to secure it down. It's also important not to strike the anvil directly, because that can damage it. It is not a pinata. Right? Why does this happen? All right. So let's look at the different parts of an anvil. So first and foremost, you got your face. That's where you're going to be doing most of your work in here. It's the hardest part on an anvil. Some anvils will actually have a special hardened piece of steel which is fused on the top as the face, just because it's so important that that face is free of damage, because any nicks and bumps are going to transfer deformities into your work, which is not good. It's also got a rounded edge so you don't break or cut your piece of metal when you're using the anvil. Now if you want to break or cut your piece of metal, that's why you got your step, which is right next to it. It's got sharp corners. However, this is kind of controversial within the blacksmithing community, because using that too much can damage your anvil, and these are not very cheap. On the edge you have a horn. This is for curving or bending metal, and the conical shape of the horn allows for precise forging, because you can move laterally across it. You got two holes here, the Pritchell hole and the Hardy hole. These are for different tools you can attach to your anvil for different functions. They come in all shapes and sizes, as you can see in this depiction. Anvils also come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So let's look at some of the different types of anvils here. For example, a medieval anvil could be made of bone, and they're used in special iron workings. There's also anvils in nature. Can anyone guess what animals other than humans use anvils? Any guesses? It's good.
Monkeys?
Monkeys, that's correct. Monkeys use anvils, as do birds and raccoons. They will use logs or stones in order to crack their nuts on top of it so they can eat. There's also heavy-duty anvils, which are good for big power hammers for your huge industrial jobs, and small anvils for little jobs. You also have ASOs. This is an anvil-shaped object, so if you're an amateur blacksmith or just need something real quick, you can get something that kind of looks like an anvil to function as one, but might not be as reliable. And we have a depiction of these different types of anvils here. See, big, small, that's a chimpanzee. And that's your example of an ASO. Lucas, pay attention to this part. This is the history of anvils.
Here we go.
So, like everything, the materials improved over time. Anvils were originally made of stone, and then later as we developed, they became bronze and iron and wrought iron, which is a low carbon version of iron, much more sturdy. Today, most anvils are going to be made of cast steel, and you know, as I mentioned before, sometimes they would have a steel face fused on top. Historically, anvils were much more popular than they are today. Every town would have a blacksmith, and the blacksmith would make all your metal products, and to do that they would use an anvil. But they're still used today, as we'll see in a little bit. Colonial America, anvils are actually essential to the founding of our country. So this is really important. Anvils would be used to craft weapons and such for our revolution, which made us so great, right? And then you also get the phrase, to strike when the iron's hot. It comes from this period because the blacksmiths would take iron bars and put them on an anvil and strike it into a nail or something. But if you wait till it cooled, it would become brittle and break. So you gotta strike when the iron's hot. World War II. How many of you guys would like to live under a world where Nazi Germany is in control? Right? Not me. Probably not any of you. This is why we should all be grateful for anvils, because in the time of war, anvils, like many other metal tools, were melted down to build tanks and ammunition and such. So anvils practically saved the world. Anvils today, when we looked at how they have influenced the past, how they influence us today. Well, clearly they're not as common. They're still used by amateur blacksmiths in custom pieces of metal, and specifically by farriers who will make horseshoes and care for a horse's hoofs. Blacksmith or anvils are still essential to those work. You've seen them in cartoons, as you see Wile E. Coyote there has been smashed by an Acme brand anvil. You'll sometimes hear the sound of an anvil being struck in music. There's also the concept of molecular anvils for the chemists out there. This is something hard like diamond, which actually functions as an anvil in certain compounds and reactions. And then you also have a tradition of anvil firing, in which two anvils are stacked on each other as such, and gunpowder is placed in between them. And this is a video of what that looks like. That's pretty crazy, right? Come on. So hopefully you learned today that there's more to anvils than meets the iron. We saw a bit about their history, the materials, and how they impact us today. So, you know, be grateful for anvils and everything they've done for us. And then we have some citations here because there is no forgery.